Oh, I should have done something more emotionally charged than what I'm about to give you. This is our last day. This is our last day as Christians, or at least that I attempt to defend Christianity in an intellectual sort of way. And it occurs to me that this was perhaps a failure from the start. That Christians, the one thing I've really learned this week is that Christians, before they are even theologians, are believers. These are faithful people. And the idea of defending Christianity on reason alone doesn't pan out for many of them. So considering that handicap, I stand by my original arguments that the greatest, the strongest intellectual appeal that you can make in defense of Christianity is to assert that it is a metaphor. That's really disheartening for some people. Well, for all Christians, really. Because Christians put an exceeding amount of emotional interest in the scene of the crucifixion. And if that was not real, then what the hell are we doing? It's a fair question. But what I'm about to ask you, I believe, is also a fair question. What kind of empathy can we have for a being that knew infinite life before coming to this world? That might be loving, but is God. You see, if Christ was God, it was God that was put on the cross. And indeed, God might have endured the physical suffering that one might endure, such as you or I, if we went through a similar ordeal. The pains that you and I would go through would only be in part physical. It would be the psychological situation we would be in, that we wouldn't know when we were going to die. Is it going to be in the next hour? The next day? The next 5 days? Slowly starve to death? We wouldn't know. Terrifying. That is terrifying. But the idea that it was God, he knew precisely when he was going to die. He knew how he was going to die. At what minute, what second, what hour, whatever. Is this not significant? That's my question. Is this not significant? For me, I can't find myself feeling empathetic for Christ. I can't. And it's for that reason that I took the route that I took. That the metaphor should not be a kick in the pants for Christians, because it is a deep and meaningful metaphor. But the deep and meaningful quality, the emotional quality, is reserved then for something other than what doesn't logically follow. If it was, this is the true potential criminal act here. If Jesus was a real person like you and I think it is a disservice to that person to assume that he was truly God. And if he was truly God, then on what basis do you have empathy for his suffering? The message is that he gave himself for someone else. And my parents are playing Boggle. Can you hear that? The message is an important one. I just don't think it's a historic one. And we would see a radical shift in the faith if this approach was taken. I wasn't anticipating to defend Christianity in such a way that would have me defend Christianity against both Christians and non-Christians. That was a little strange. But I should have foreseen that as much, because but I didn't. I thought the metaphor idea would have been more amiable. However, there is great emotional appeal, like I said, around the crucifixion. Whether or not that's justified is up for you to decide. What else can we talk about? I'm rather tired. It's flooding over here. I don't know if you know. Not life-threatening or anything like that, but I was in a sandbagging team yesterday, and I'm quite bushed still, which is why I'm not sort of giving you a whiz-bang kind of ending here with the lights and the flashes and whatever else. I'm just kind of beat. I will just sort of reassert my position here, basically. To begin with, and probably the most philosophically interesting bit of my defense of Christianity is in the cosmological argument, the idea of the infinite regression problem. So one counter-argument I've heard to infinite regression that I responded to in comments I didn't really have a full argument against until just tonight. Otherwise, I would have brought this up. But the counter-argument is quantum mechanics, at least to this one individual, saying that there's a possibility that at the quantum level, quantum events come into existence by no cause. Okay. Quantum mechanics is something that we are incredibly ignorant of. And until there is something in quantum theory that necessitates quantum events having no cause, then you can't use it as evidence for the necessity of no cause. You can use it as evidence for the possibility, but then we're talking in terms of Occam's razor. And this might seem counterintuitive, and it might be because it's a crock of shit. But here you go. Here's the argument. What is complexity? Complexity is what? A system that has a lot of independent parts. If it was all connected, it's simple. You know, for example, you see a Nautilus shell. Is it complex or is it simple? Well, it's simple because it's all operating by one algorithm, so to speak, or something that can be represented as an algorithm. If the Nautilus shell had two algorithms going on, it's a more complex thing. If it had 100 algorithms all sort of mixing in with each other, then we have a really friggin' complicated Nautilus shell. Here's the thing with quantum mechanics. If indeed quantum events come into existence by no cause, you're saying it's random. You're making each one of those quantum events mutually exclusive to every other quantum event. If that's the case, then your account of the universe is the most complicated account conceivable. Why? Because you have every particle of the universe, not even particles, like quantum thingamabobs, quarks and gluons and all that stuff that I don't know enough about. But you are saying that the subatomic particles, the quantum events that give rise to atoms, that give rise to everything else, that each one of those quantum events are there on their own algorithm. If they were all caused, then they might be all caused by the same algorithm. And that is not what you're arguing, because that would end the problem of infinite regression, but in a manner that I would be interested in as a theologian. But if you want to say the basis of the universe is randomness, you've conceived of the most complicated explanation. Randomness can be bettered by none in terms of in terms of complexity. It can't be done. Matter of definition. All right. There. You see, I make statements, I make arguments, just to really push it at you because I know that'll get a response from you. I'm fairly confident in that. And I wish I came up with it earlier because we could have had more fun with it. So I will respond to your comments. It's the least I can do, even though the days of my Christianity are numbered. Meaning that I need you to vote for what I'm going to be next week. And I will remind you that James this whole time has been taking notes, or at least I assume he is, getting ready to defend Christianity for himself in his own particular way. Who'll do better, me or James? The only way you can find out is if you vote me as an atheist this next week. That will trip him into, I say trip him into as if it's like a machine, but that will give him reason to be Christian, or at least to defend Christianity, or attack my position on defense of Christianity. I hope he got that right. We'll see. We'll see. Hold his ass to the fire on this one. You certainly held mine. Vote. Atheist or New Age. No pressure or anything. But James isn't going to argue Christianity if you vote New Age.